Your Ford F-150's EcoBoost is being strangled of air right now, and I can almost guarantee you have no idea it's happening. I have been working on turbocharged Ford engines for over 15 years, and I see the same choked up trucks come through the shop week after week. Owners who are losing power, burning extra fuel, and dealing with rough idle have absolutely no clue why. Tonight I'm going to show you exactly what is suffocating your EcoBoost from the inside out, and most importantly, how to fix every single one of these problems before they turn into something genuinely expensive. The EcoBoost engine family, whether you have the 2.7-liter V6 or the 3.5-liter V6, was engineered around one core principle: force more air into a smaller engine than should physically be possible. Two turbochargers pull air in, compress it, chill it through an intercooler, and push it into the cylinders at pressures that allow a 6-cylinder engine to generate the torque and power of a much larger motor. The 3.5-liter tops out at 400 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque in its higher output configurations. None of those numbers happen without a perfectly clear, unrestricted path for air to travel from outside the truck all the way into the combustion chambers. That entire system only works when the airflow path stays clean and unobstructed from beginning to end. When any part of that pathway gets compromised, the engine compensates by working harder, running hotter, burning more fuel, and eventually throwing codes you cannot explain. Let me walk you through each choke point in order, from the one causing the most hidden damage to the one you can fix yourself tonight with nothing but a can of cleaner and 20 minutes. The first thing that is choking your EcoBoost is the one nobody talks about because it happens invisibly and silently over tens of thousands of miles. It is carbon buildup on the backs of your intake valves, and it is caused directly by the way Ford designed the direct injection fuel system in these engines. In a traditional port-injected engine, fuel is sprayed into the intake port before it reaches the valve. That fuel spray acts as a continuous solvent, washing oil deposits off the back of the valve every time the engine runs. It is not glamorous chemistry, but it works. The valve stays clean. The EcoBoost eliminates this entirely. Direct injection sprays fuel straight into the combustion chamber, bypassing the intake valves completely. The back of the valve receives nothing but blow-by oil vapor from the positive crankcase ventilation system, and that vapor bakes onto the hot metal and hardens into a carbon crust over time. Here is what that crust actually does to your airflow. The intake valve is the gateway to the combustion chamber. When carbon builds up on the back of that valve, the opening gets physically smaller. The turbocharged air that the EcoBoost worked hard to compress and cool now has to squeeze through a restricted opening to get into the cylinder. The engine loses volumetric efficiency, you lose power and throttle response, fuel economy drops, the idle gets rough on cold starts because the restricted valves create uneven airflow between cylinders. And the insidious part is that it happens so gradually, you never feel a single dramatic moment of failure. Your truck just slowly gets worse and worse, and you adapt to it without realizing what you have lost. The fix for existing carbon deposits is walnut blasting, and it is exactly what it sounds like. A shop removes the intake manifold to expose the intake ports and uses compressed air to blast crushed walnut shells against the valves. The shells are hard enough to strip the carbon off, but soft enough that they cannot damage the metal. A proper walnut blast job costs between $500 and $1,000, depending on the shop and your specific engine configuration. Most Gen 1 EcoBoost owners, meaning 2011 through 2016, need this service somewhere between 50,000 and 70,000 miles. Some need it sooner if they do a lot of city driving, extended idling, or towing. Once it is done, the results are immediate. Throttle response comes back, idle smooths out, and fuel economy improves. Many Gen 1 owners now treat this as scheduled maintenance, budgeting for it the same way they budget for tires. But treating the symptom without addressing the cause means you will be back in the shop paying for another walnut blast job in another 50,000 miles. The cause is the PCV system constantly feeding oil vapor into the intake tract. The fix is an oil catch can, also called an oil separator, and this is the one thing you can add to your EcoBoost that will slow down future carbon buildup more than anything else. Ford even recognized this problem badly enough that Ford Performance Parts developed and sells their own official oil separator kits for the 3.5-liter EcoBoost. Part number M676635T for 2017 through 2020 trucks and M676635TA for 2021 and newer. Let that sink in for a second. Ford's own Performance Parts division sells a kit to fix a problem that exists in Ford's own engine. The kit is not cheap, but it is engineered specifically for the EcoBoost, rather than being a universal unit that may or may not fit properly. Third-party catch cans from J&L, Mishimoto, and other reputable manufacturers are also available at various price points and install in line with the PCV hose without any permanent modifications to the truck. Installation takes about 30 minutes with basic hand tools, and the catch can simply intercepts the oil vapor before it reaches the intake, allowing clean air to continue while the oil condenses and collects in the can below. You drain the can every oil change. If you own a first-generation EcoBoost, a catch will not undo the carbon that is already there, but it will dramatically slow down how quickly the next layer builds. If you own a second-generation EcoBoost from 2017 or newer, Ford added port injection to the engine alongside the direct injection specifically to combat this problem. The port injectors spray fuel across the intake valves at low loads and idle to keep them clean. But the PCV vapor still enters the system, still coats the charge air cooler with oil, and a catch can still benefits these engines by keeping the charge air cooler and intercooler piping cleaner. The second airflow problem choking your EcoBoost is intercooler contamination, and this one comes in two different forms depending on your model year. On 2011 through 2016 trucks with the 3.5-liter EcoBoost, the original intercooler design had a fundamental condensation problem. The job of the intercooler is to cool the hot compressed air coming from the turbos before it enters the engine. Colder, denser air means more oxygen per cubic inch and more power. But the early intercooler design was so efficient at cooling the charge air that under certain conditions, particularly humid weather at highway speeds or during heavy towing, the cooling process crossed a threshold that caused moisture in the air to condense into liquid water inside the intercooler. That water would pool quietly in the bottom of the unit, completely invisible to the driver, until the owner pressed the accelerator hard and the surge of boosted air sucked the accumulated water directly into the intake. Owners called it the EcoBoost shudder. The engine would violently stumble, hesitate, and sometimes drop into limp mode mid-acceleration. The check engine light would come on with misfire codes, sometimes multiple cylinders at once. Ford issued a technical service bulletin number 13-8-1 that addressed the problem by repositioning an air deflector from the top of the intercooler to the bottom, which increased the temperature inside the cooler just enough to vaporize condensation rather than letting it pool as liquid. If you own a 2011 or 2012 F-150 with the 3.5-liter EcoBoost and you have never had this service performed, you need to have it done or have the intercooler replaced entirely. Replacement intercoolers from Mishimoto and other aftermarket manufacturers designed specifically for the 2011 through 2014 trucks actually outperform the factory unit, eliminate the condensation problem completely, and drop intake temperatures. On trucks of all EcoBoost model years, there is a second intercooler contamination problem that few owners address. The PCV system vapor that bypasses the catch, you may not have installed yet, coats the interior of the intercooler with a fine film of oil. Over time, that oil residue insulates the intercooler walls, reducing their ability to transfer heat out of the compressed air. The charge air temperature coming into the engine rises. The engine's knock control system detects higher combustion temperatures and pulls timing to prevent detonation, which directly reduces power output. The result is a truck that feels progressively slower and less responsive under load. Even when everything else appears to be working correctly, you cannot see this happening. There is no code, no warning light, no obvious symptom other than an engine that just does not pull as hard as it used to. By stopping oil vapor from entering the intake system before it coats the intercooler, you preserve the intercooler's ability to do its job at the level Ford designed it to perform. The third thing choking your EcoBoost sits right at the front of the intake system, and unlike the carbon buildup or intercooler issues, this one costs almost nothing to fix, and you can take care of it in your driveway tonight. The mass airflow sensor and the MAP sensors measure the volume and density of air entering the engine. The powertrain control module uses those readings to calculate the correct fuel delivery and boost targets. If those sensors are coated with oil film from the positive crankcase ventilation system vapor or contaminated with debris that passed through a worn air filter, they give the computer inaccurate readings. The engine runs the wrong air to fuel ratio. You lose power, fuel economy drops, and the engine may stumble or hesitate during acceleration. EcoBoost owners who have cleaned their MAP sensors and MAF sensors after 50,000 miles consistently report that the truck feels more responsive immediately after the cleaning. The MAF sensor sits in the intake air box near the air filter. 2 torque screws hold it in place. Remove it, spray the sensing wire element with dedicated MAF sensor cleaner, and let it air dry completely before reinstalling. Do not touch the sensing element with your fingers or any cloth. The element is extremely delicate, and a fingerprint can cause inaccurate readings. The MAP sensors on the EcoBoost are slightly more numerous than on a naturally aspirated engine. There is one on the intake air filter lid, one on the charge air pipe before the throttle body, and one on top of the intake manifold. Owners who have cleaned all 3 at once frequently describe getting significant performance and fuel economy back, even without any other service. Use CRC MAF cleaner or an equivalent product that leaves no residue. This entire job costs about $12 in cleaner and takes less than 30 minutes. While you have the intake hose disconnected, look at the throttle body bore in the throttle plate itself. On high-mileage EcoBoosts, oil vapor from the PCV system coats the throttle bore with a layer of carbon and oil residue that narrows the opening and disrupts the smooth laminar airflow the engine needs. The throttle body is the last gate air passes through before entering the intake manifold, and a dirty throttle body can cause rough idle at low speeds, hesitation off the line, and an idle that hunts for the correct RPM. Spray dedicated throttle body cleaner onto a clean rag and wipe the bore and both sides of the throttle plate. Do not force the plate open by hand against the electronic actuator motor. Let the cleaner do the work and use gentle wiping motions to remove the deposits. A throttle body service at a shop costs $100 to $200. Doing it yourself costs $10 in 15 minutes. The fourth thing choking your EcoBoost is something most owners never think about, because the symptoms do not immediately suggest an air problem. Boost leaks in the charge air system between the turbos and the intake manifold are the single most common cause of poor EcoBoost fuel economy and performance loss according to diagnostic data, and they are frequently missed because they can be very small, very gradual, and completely silent at idle. The charge air path runs from the turbocharger compressor outlet, through the intercooler pipes, through the intercooler core, through the lower intercooler pipes, and into the intake manifold. Every connection along that path is a potential leak point. The rubber hoses connecting the metal intercooler pipes to the intercooler and to the throttle body are the most common failure points, because heat cycling over time causes the rubber to stiffen and crack, and the clamps can back off. On older high-mileage trucks, the plastic intake manifold itself can develop hairline cracks, particularly around the boss fittings where sensors and hoses connect. When a boost leak develops, compressed air that the turbocharger just worked to generate escapes before reaching the cylinders. The mass airflow sensor measured the air entering the system upstream of the leak, but that air never makes it to the combustion chamber. The powertrain control module sees a mismatch between commanded fueling and actual combustion output, trims fuel delivery incorrectly, and the engine runs lean and weak under boost conditions. You may notice hesitation or stumbling during acceleration. You may notice the truck feels completely normal at light throttle, but falls flat when you ask for hard acceleration. The turbochargers work harder to try to compensate, which increases heat in the bearing housings and accelerates wear. You may see a check engine light with lean condition codes, or you may see nothing at all if the leak is small enough. Diagnosing boost leaks properly requires either a smoke machine or an aftermarket boost leak tester kit, which you can buy online for about $30. The tester pressurizes the charge air system at low pressure with the engine off, and you listen or use soapy water to locate the leak. The most common places are the rubber intercooler couplers, the clamps at the throttle body inlet, and on trucks made before 2017, the charge pipes themselves, which on some configurations are known to have weak flanges. Replacing rubber intercooler couplers and hoses is a do-it-yourself friendly repair that costs $50 to $150 in parts, depending on the year and configuration. Having a shop perform a full boost leak test and repair costs $200 to $500 depending on what they find. If your EcoBoost has been slowly losing power over the past year or two and nothing in the engine bay looks obviously wrong, a boost leak test should be the first thing you do. Here is the larger picture that connects every single one of these problems. Your EcoBoost was engineered with very specific airflow targets at every stage of the intake path. The manufacturer's performance numbers, the towing ratings, the fuel economy estimates, all of them assume clean sensors, clean valves, a clean intercooler, intact boost hoses, and an uncontaminated PCV system. When any of those pathways gets restricted, the truck starts operating outside of its design parameters. The computer adapts and compensates as best it can, but adaptation always comes with a cost, whether that is reduced power, increased fuel consumption, higher combustion temperatures, or accelerated wear on components that are now working harder than they were designed to. The change is not dramatic. There is no single morning when you start the truck and immediately know something is wrong. It creeps up on you over 10,000-mile increments, and by the time you notice, you have been driving a compromised truck for longer than you realize. The good news is that every single problem on this list is preventable, and most are reversible if they have not progressed too far. Clean your MAF and MAP sensors every 25,000 miles. It costs nothing but a can of cleaner. Install a catch can on any first-generation EcoBoost as soon as possible to slow valve carbon accumulation. Budget for a walnut blast service at 50,000 to 70,000 miles if you have a Generation 1 engine, and plan to repeat it if you rack up miles quickly. Have your boost system tested for leaks if your truck has lost power gradually without any obvious cause. If you have a 2011 through 2012 truck with the 3.5-liter engine, make sure the intercooler condensation fix has been applied or have the intercooler replaced with a quality aftermarket unit. These are not exotic repairs requiring special tools or dealership visits. Most of them are maintenance tasks that any mechanically inclined owner can handle at home. The ones that require professional equipment, walnut blasting, and boost leak testing are not expensive relative to the performance they restore. Your EcoBoost is a genuinely impressive piece of engineering when every part of its intake system is working the way Ford designed it. Keep those pathways clear and that engine will pull hard, run efficiently, and last for well over 200,000 miles without complaint. Let them get choked up and you will keep wondering why your truck feels like a shadow of what it used to be. One final thing that owners frequently overlook sits at the very beginning of the airflow path, the air filter. A clogged air filter restricts the volume of air reaching the turbocharger inlets, which means the turbos are trying to pull more than the filter can supply. The result is a drop in boost pressure that the engine cannot fully compensate for, plus elevated intake temperatures as the turbo works harder against the restriction. Ford recommends replacing the air filter every 30,000 miles under normal conditions and every 15,000 miles under severe duty conditions, which includes regular towing, hauling, or driving on dusty, unpaved roads. Many owners go far beyond those intervals without a second thought. A replacement Motorcraft air filter for the EcoBoost costs about $25 and installs in under 5 minutes. It is genuinely the most affordable performance upgrade you can perform on any EcoBoost. And if you have not checked yours recently, pull it out and hold it up to the light. If you cannot see light through it clearly, it is overdue. One other air filter note. Several owners have reported that oiled performance air filters like K and N can contaminate the MAF sensor with an oil film if they are over-oiled, causing the kind of sensor inaccuracies discussed earlier in this video. If you run an oiled filter, make sure you clean your MAF sensor regularly and be careful to apply oil sparingly during reinstallation. The stock paper filter with regular replacement intervals is the safest choice for long-term MAF sensor health on these engines. If you found this useful, subscribe and hit the notification bell because I put out real technical information that saves Ford owners serious money. Drop a comment below telling me which of these issues you found on your own truck, because I know some of you have been dealing with symptoms for years without knowing what was causing them. I will see you in the next one.